there is a lot of rain. And Dominicans too, they don't like rain. It's so funny. They think they're gonna get sick. I mean, you can get sick. I won't, discredit that. But I just remember walking in flooded streets. And it was kind of fun because you're like, whoa, puddles and stuff. Falling in isn't the best, but there's just a lot of rain. And so just expect to get wet while you're there. I think the most craziest was when I was in my first area in Akoa. Since it was raining a lot, the streets were flooding. We had to climb up this thing and try not to fall into this river. And not that it was a crazy river, but the river of the street. And that's how the streets get clean. So you don't really play in the water because all the trash and stuff gets washed with it. And there's a lot of stray dogs, so there's a lot of stray other things. So this was a lot of rain. I love Dominicans. They are loud and there's not really personal space with them. Which is, I like some of the other culture that neighbors and stuff, everyone, you're basically, if you're neighbors, your family, you go into each other's houses and just you're like, oh, okay. But they're very loud, they're very blunt, which takes, Americans were kind of more conserved, I feel like. But I just remember, because we just talked about food, I liked the Dominican food. And I remember a few times the Dominicans, they'd just be like, oh, do you like the Dominican food? I'm like, yeah, I do. They're like, oh, it looks like it. And I'm like, oh, thanks. Or like, oh, you're getting a little fatter. And I'm like, dang it. I'm glad you're telling me that so I, can fix it. But they're just no shame. Which sometimes I feel like I need to be careful because now I kind of picked up on it. I'm like, I don't know, more blunt. But I kind of like it because they're there's no holding back. Like I said, they're loud, so they always have loud music. It's not really quiet in a Dominican community unless you live out in El Campo, which is the countryside. So, I love that they love you, very hospitable, and they just want to share everything with you. They're willing to share with anyone if they can, even if they don't have much, which I really love that. Because they don't really have much there, but they learn to live with a lot less, I feel like, and they're happy and loving, and I think that's great. So I love them. They're all very religious, or say that they are. Everyone, it is a believing country, which I think is really cool. Even in the flag itself, it has an open Bible on it, which I think is really neat. Almost everyone is a believer in God, at least in Christ. They all have kind of that background. It's kind of in their schooling, I feel like, too, that they kind of openly talk about it more. It's not necessarily, closed, personal thing. Everyone kind of believes in God. For that reason, there are a lot of churches. It's not just Catholic. I remember one of my areas, we lived in front of a Seventh-day Adventist church. And down the street was a Pentecostal church, and right next to that church was our church. So there's it was Catholic churches, there's a lot of Jehovah's Witnesses, there's a lot of Seventh-day Adventist church, Pentecostal churches, just a lot of Methodist. I think there's Methodist, there's Nazarene, there's so many beliefs there because they're just so believing, which I think is really awesome that they have that background and that they're openly talk about it, which I think is cool. They speak really fast, and they cut off a lot of all their S's. They don't use S's, or sometimes they'll add S's in the middle of the word, and it's not supposed to be there. And I kind of explain it how we have English here. We have different kinds of accents, here in the Midwest, but also we have the South, and they have a Southern drawl and different lingo, different names for things. And so that's kind of how it is, I feel the Dominican Spanish. They have a lot of different words for different things, and so if you didn't grow up there, you're what are they talking about? And they just speak really fast, and you're what? I remember I was with my Peruvian companion, and it was my last transfer, so I had been there for a while, and we were asking directions of where a guy lived. And he's like, oh yeah, I live over here, down this street, turn this, to this, and this. And it's in this orange house. But he didn't use like the normal Spanish word for orange. He used the word called mame, which is a Dominican word. And she's like, where does he live? I was like, the Orange House. And she's like, I didn't hear that word. I'm like, yeah, he said mame, which means orange. So, and it was kind of funny that they have a lot of different lingo, and sometimes I have to be careful when I speak with people like Mexicans, because they use a word there called like chin, which means a little bit, but I guess it's close to a bad word in Mexican Spanish. So like they just have different terms for things, and it's fun. It's a fun experience. In the beginning, I didn't necessarily like Dominican food. It's a lot of rice and beans, which I had heard that they ate rice and beans before, and I don't know, since American culture is so involved with, I feel like, Mexican culture, I was like, oh yeah, like Mexican food, like refried beans and rice, like that's fine. It's not like that at all. It's like just white rice, and like, I don't know what kind of beans they are, but like kidney beans, but all kinds of beans really. They make something called moro, which either you can use beans, or something called guandule, which is like peas. So they eat a lot of rice, which I wasn't used to. You get like a rice belly like the first couple months. And they eat something called sancocho, which is like a soup, but like potatoes and yuca and plantains and meats, and just this big mystery soup. But that's actually kind of good. And my favorite probably actually is the bandera, which means flag, which is just rice, beans, and meat. And they have a little salad, which, I don't know, they make all kinds of different food, but it's like cheap food there. Like you can buy anything in a colmado, which is like a little convenience store. They have them on every corner. And so all the food that they make you can get there, like spaghetti, rice, beans, and plátanos, which is plantains. So, but I liked it. There's something that they make every Easter and every Christmas, which is called habichuelas con dulce, which is this like sweet beans. I don't know how I really explain it. It's kind of like a sweet soup pudding thing. I don't know, it's good. And so it's kind of like a tradition that they have. And they have something else called chaca, which is like corn and lots of sugar and condensed milk. None of it's good for you, but so they have like some interesting things which I liked. So, and living with a Dominican companion, I got to try a lot of different things, and she loved to cook, so I was like, have at it. So they eat a lot of salami too, and fried eggs, and a lot of things fried actually, now that I think about it, like empanadas, and something called bollitos, which are like, I didn't know what yuca was before, but it's kind of like similar to potato. They have to take out the hard shell, cook it, and for bollitos they like grind it up and put egg in it, put cheese in the middle, and then fry it. It looks kind of like a mini corn dog thing. So I don't know. Tried a lot of Dominican food, so it helped make bollitos and help grade cocoa for people to sell, like coconut candy. And so yeah, it was liver, but it wasn't necessarily clean, and liver is a little sketch. And so she like gave it to us, and I'm like, I don't want to eat this, and my companion's like, what is it? I'm like, don't eat it. And so like I ate some of it, but you just like pray that it doesn't get you sick. And so it wasn't necessarily like something like super crazy like tongue or intestines. I luckily didn't try intestines. They do have something like a soup that they eat intestines, but that was the most scary because I was afraid I was going to get sick. They have basically almost everything that we have, but there are some things that are more expensive, and depending on where you are in the Campo before, which is a countryside, there's a lot less things available there. But when you're in the capital, basically everything you really need is there. My first area was Ocoa. I was there for 6 months, so that's a longer time. Like I said, it's like the coldest area. So actually, I was expecting to be hot in the Dominican Republic like the whole time. And I got there around the end of February, and I was freezing at night, which I was not expecting. I remember grabbing all my clothes, like the cardigans I didn't need, and like putting them on top of me to sleep at night. Like it was just so cold. So I ended up having to buy a blanket, which I thought was crazy. Like I didn't need a blanket. But it was really interesting because since it was in the mountains, one of our areas we had to cross a river and climb up the mountain, which is about an hour walk up, an hour walk down, and I was like, oh, this is so fun. And then when it rains, it floods, and like, oh, it's crazy. But I love Nicolet. Since most people in the South are poor, that story that I shared about Bien Tiempo, like that was when I was in training. So it is more poorer areas, but it's very beautiful, very green since it's mountainy. A lot of rain, and it's a lot of people actually go there. We'd always run into Canadians, which I was like, why is there white people here? Like, what? Because people always stare at us, and I'd stare at the white Canadians that came in. I'm like, who are they? I'm like, is that how they feel? Like, is that what we look like? But so that was my first area, and I really liked it. Then I went to that area to the capital, which is a different change for me. It was hot, and I got my first Latin companion. I got a Dominican, so that was a big change. I went from like cold, beautiful, large area. It was a lot of walking to like the capital, small area, hot. I was speaking Spanish all the time, and it's hotter in the capital, I feel like, because there's not as much airflow because of all the buildings and stuff. And then I went from there back to the south to San Juan, and that's another beautiful place. I was blessed. I went to Ocoa, and then I went to San Juan, which is another beautiful area. And it wasn't super mountainy, but it was out there in the countryside, and just really wonderful people. I have a wonderful family there that I met, that I consider them my family, and it was a great place for me. And then I left that area and went back to the capital, to Quisqueya, it was around May, June, July area time that I was there, and so it was really hot again in the capital. The houses are a lot different than they are here. Usually it's just like concrete, like blocks, and depending on how wealthy you are, you have either tin roofs or you actually have like a wooden roof, because the tin is really loud when it rains, and it rains quite a bit. It's interesting to me, like in the capital especially, is where I saw this the most, is you could have a really nice house, like nice areas in the capital are way better than the houses I've seen here. I'm like, whoa. But then you can have just a couple houses down this alleyway with this, like, call them callejones, which is like houses built on houses like crazy, just on top of each other in small areas. And that's why I said, like, neighbors are basically family, because you basically live right there. And so those are the more poorer areas. So I thought it was interesting, like the change between that. Most houses are like very close to each other, either on top, a little bit below. The building structure is a little different. Dios nos ama muchísimo. No soy perfecta, pero yo sé que puedo ser más perfecta mediante la expiación de Jesucristo. Y que Jesucristo murió para nosotros, para que podamos regresar a vivir con ellos. La vida es difícil, pero con el Evangelio es mucho mejor. Yo he visto eso en mi vida, que yo puedo ser feliz, pero puedo ser más feliz y entender mejor mi propósito aquí en la tierra. Cuando tengo el Evangelio en mi vida, testifico que no estamos solos aquí en la vida. Tenemos nuestro Salvador a nuestro lado, que siempre está aquí para ayudarnos a caminar durante esos tiempos difíciles y los tiempos felices y tal vez más fácil. Estoy tan agradecida por el Evangelio y por el testimonio que he recibido. Testifico que todo vale la pena si perseveramos hasta el fin.